direct. Actually got the ball. Yes, Spurs fans, welcome back to the Irish Hotspur with your boys Dave, Jack, Martin and Stevie. Will be joining us this afternoon as we build up to what is a big game for Tottenham Hotspur as we take on Man City, a team that we usually beat, to be fair. So I think it's fair to say it brings a fair bit of optimism heading into today's game. Although they do have an incentive. They do need to keep sort of track with Arsenal, so they are going to come in very, very motivated today. So it's going to be a tough game. But hopefully we can nab something from today's game because, look, I said it on last one of Spurs there Friday. You know, if I've seen us pick up a point with Emerson Royale and Ben Davies the centre back, so nothing is beyond impossible today. But there is a lot going on around the club today. There is a protest before the game starting at 4 p.m. outside the South Stand, and then also there is a walkout on the 75th minute today. So it'll be interesting to see how that goes. If we're losing, me and Martin were discussing beforehand, probably see a mass walkout. If we're winning, it'd be very interesting to see whether people follow through with it or not. But what I will say to people going to the game, if you see what Lazio fans done, you know, and stuff like that, complete boycott of the game and stuff like that, stuff is going to have to happen at Tottenham like that if we want to be able to force these owners' hands into something. But nonetheless, an absolute massive game today. Let's welcome a few people in and then let's crack on. We have Logan THFC. Good morning, big fella. Or fellas, big up. Don't care what anyone else says. I want to beat these today. Come on, you Spurs. Absolutely spot on, Logan. We all want to win today. You know, win today would just ease that maybe relegation concern for a week at least. And he's also sent in a super sticker. Let me just go and see what...
He's keeping it 100, Dave. That's what he sent in. He's done the 100 emoji. Big up, Logan. And
Logan's got out the right side of the bed today.
Yeah, he wants 100 points on the board for us, but not for Man City. I mean, I'm in the same boat, to be perfectly honest. I think this year is very different to the previous times where there was controversy about Spurs winning or not. I don't see any reason for us to play around with, dropping more points and losing more games. It's a very difficult February, but we'll get into it, Logan. I like that you're already on the same beat as I am, though.
Yeah, big up, Logan. Good to see you. Very energized this morning or this afternoon, I see. Wembley 1, good to see you as well. Big up, guys, and all in the chat. I hate saying this, but thank you, Chelsea. Not quite so much pressure on today after the turnaround last night. I was going off somewhere with the old lads yesterday. I was sitting in the car, and I remember them saying the West Ham were 1 up, and I just put my hands in my head, and I was like, I couldn't believe what I was hearing. And then by the time I got back and checked the result, Chelsea had won 3-2, which was a godsend, an absolute godsend. But I hate them that much. I still won't say thank you. Big up, Wembley 1. Good to see you in the building. We've also got Alpesh in the house. Good afternoon, Dave and Jack. Just resting up for now after my night shift and getting ready to go to the match at the Lane. Haven't got a Scooby what's going to happen on the pitch, but off it. Let me know if you're joining the protest today, Alpesh. Good to see you. And that's absolute dedication. Night shift, few hours sleep, and then straight down to the Lane. Big up, Alpesh. Good to see you. Not at any bands this weekend on the bank holiday weekend, my man. We've got Lee Moody afternoon all. Hopefully we can bring that Champions League form to the Premier League today. Come on, you Spurs. I mean, look, the players have sort of spoke about after their game midweek against Frankfurt about trying to translate that now to the Premier League. And I'd argue if we want to make a good go at the last 16 and a good run in the qualifiers of the Champions League, in order to be able to prioritize that, we have to pull ourselves out of trouble here over this next month, because if not, the club will tell them to prioritize Premier League safety over Europe for sure. We've also got Harmless Potato on the house. Good to see you. Hopefully you're keeping well. I'm not even sure what this says. Why is everything upside down? What's going on? Oh, I did make it out. I haven't a clue, lad.
He's on holiday in Australia this week. He must be.
Down under. Absolutely love that. We've got Beautiful in the house. This will be interesting. Good to see you. Hopefully you're keeping well. Rodney Martin, big up. Come on, you Spurs. We've also got NJ in the house. Good afternoon, all. Come on, you Spurs. We've got Shem Tam in the house. Hey, Dave, Sleepy Jack, and Mr. Martin. Hope all are well today. I'd say Jack looks fresher than me, to be fair. What is the injury update? Keep hearing so many more players out, but don't find any articles about it. Is Spence out? I didn't say anything about Jed Spence being out. No, I wasn't looking at too much news.
Yeah, there's rumours Spence, Van der Ven, and someone else out.
I know Van der Ven was touch and go for today. I remember seeing that. But, yeah, it'd be interesting to see, Shem. be interesting to see. At the end of the day, you just don't know. I think what I was seeing today is we've got 12 fit players for today, and Dragosin is one of them, and he hasn't played all season long. So, it's absolutely tough times. But like I said, if we can pick up a point away from home with Emerson Royal and Ben Davies as centre back, there is hope. We've got Dan the Hat Spurs, good to see you. Oi, oi, come on, you Spurs. Big up all Spurs fans. We've also got Paul Brown in the house. Good afternoon, Paul. Good to see you, sir. Afternoon, gents. Hopefully you're keeping well. Faz Radfire 4-0 Spurs. Big up my favourite channel. Good to see you, Faz. Hopefully you're keeping well, sir. Good to see you in the building. He also says, I would love to win today, but no draw, please. Why no draw? Would you not take a draw today, Faz? I'd take it, worst case scenario.
I'll take it over a loss.
Huh?
I'll take it over a loss.
Yeah, for sure I would. That's what I'm getting at. Faz, why no draw today? Let me know, my man.
I think it's like the best, or it's the worst of the worlds, where you are still dropping points off of Man City, but then at the same time, you're not picking up that many points to climb yourself back up. I think that's probably the logic.
I get you, but I'd rather that than lose, though, to be fair. Big
True.
up, Faz. Steve Webb, Tottenham 3-1 at 40-1, bet 365. Got to be done, Dave and Jack. You know what? It's worth sneaky €2 or €3 on it, or a fiver if you want to be a bit more loose with your money. Definitely, for sure. Good to see you, Stevie Webb. We've also got Ghosted LDN in the house. Big up, gents. Good to see you. Lupercar, big up, lads. Want to win or want to lose is irrelevant because we are going to lose. There's a slight silver lining in keeping City going, but 3 points would all but ensure our safety, in my opinion. Yeah, I think so. I think 3 points would do us the world of good today. We've got True Pack in the house for Skovic, the future goal. What a game he played against Bayern. He's absolutely on fire at the minute. He's ripping it up out there in Germany. But, if we can't get bodies in, why aren't the club calling some of these guys back then? To be able to help relieve this situation and help try and fight for safety. We've also got just Somejo in the house. Danzo out too, so they say. Oh, for fuck's sake.
Yeah, that was the other one. Danzo, yeah.
I just think when you see that whatever that source says, I really hope they're wrong, but if the source says 12 players available, that is far fewer than what we had at least to think about going into this game, because I think Dave and I were thinking at least like 15, 16 players. Dave and I were joking that we had more players to pick from than usual for the predicted lineup, so that must have meant that 3-4 players must have gotten injured over
and that predicted lineup was done Friday, by the way.
Don't shoot us, please.
Yeah, don't shoot us. And then we've also got Stevie joining. Good afternoon, Stevie. Hopefully you're keeping well. We've got Spurs GCTV in the house. Hopefully you're keeping well. We've also got Alan Leslie. Afternoon, guys. Up the Spurs. We've also got O'Neill in the house. I'm just going to call you O'Neill. We will get a kick in. We have no players. Well, we had no players going into Dumpling game, and we ended up winning that one. So, there's hope. Andrew Spareshaft, big up, guys. How are you? Come on, you Spurs. Good to see you in the house. Mashing jaw as well. Voskovic was man of the match. I know you're a Croatian, my man. You must be excited, with him coming through the ranks. We've also got Colin in the house. Keep a cheeky eye on John Duran. Coming, boys, please, not Sterling. Well, Duran is a player that is floating around the market. Let's see whether Spurs pull the trigger on him or not. And we've also got Kurt Smith in the house. Good to see you. Hopefully you're keeping well. What's with these new injury reports? Honestly, Kurt, just dropping like flies at the minute. Yeah. I think the club are going to have to start looking at bringing some of these loan players back. Good evening. Good afternoon, Sean Hurrell. Good to see you as well. But look, let's get straight into it. Let's kick it off. We've got plenty to talk about. Jack, Tottenham return to Premier League action today with Man City arriving in North London. Spurs come into this one off the back of securing a place in the Champions League last 16 midweek. Can Spurs finally translate that European confidence into a statement Premier League performance, or are the domestic struggles sort of now too ingrained?
I'd like to hope that they can eventually, at some point, turn a corner. They eventually can somehow pull off multiple or at least some consistency in the Premier League. I don't really know what to make, though, of Spurs at the minute. I mean, maybe I'll, after a few more questions, start to let the happy clapper juices start flowing. But really, I don't have a ton of confidence with us going into this February period. If we end up getting a result today, I definitely would be saying the opposite. I think I know it's Man City. I know that we somehow surprise ourselves every time against them. But if we did pull off a win today, I think I would start to believe that maybe we can turn a corner with this team. But I mean, I was having a discussion with Tyler, with Stevie, with a few people yesterday about just sort of the January period. The January period for me could not have gone any worse, really, to be honest. Like, theoretically it could have, but it was the best opportunity for us to gather some momentum in the Premier League. even though, yes, we made it into the knockout rounds of the Champions League, and that was a real high, thank God, because it was a terrible January in general. But I don't know, Dave, I'm a little bit defeated after that period. It was just such a great opportunity for us to be talking about potentially like getting into that. That was the chance to get into the top 10, really. That was the chance to actually catch up with some of these other teams, really. And we could not have really done worse. So now that we're in February against the toughest teams in the Premier League, with the toughest set of fixtures that we'll ever have all season, I'm not going into it, to be honest, very optimistic. The only thing you could say is maybe the fact that we only have these games to worry about. Thomas Frank successfully has knocked us out of all cup competitions apart from the Champions League. So he really does have only these games to worry about. Maybe that's the slight positive, is that there's no other distractions. Just win these games. But let's be honest. I mean, it's just, it could not have gone worse in February against the worst teams in the Premier League, really. So I'm not that confident, to be honest, going into February.
Yeah, look, I can understand that. I mean, we've left ourselves a lot of work to do, right? When we had the run of like Sunderland, Brentford, Palace, and Team Burnley and teams like that, West Ham, that's where we really needed to pick up our points if we were going to really give a push for a top half finish or a European spot in the league. Now, we still have an outside chance. And it's just like Spurs to rock up this month and put points on the board where everyone sort of least expects it. You know, it's always when everything's against Spurs, we sort of tend to stand up at the end of the day. But the reality is we've left ourselves in a very uncomfortable position now moving forward. And you combine that with 24 hours, 48 hours left to go in the transfer window. We still don't look like we're bringing anybody else in to sort of help relieve the situation here either, or try and help improve the situation. And then these fixtures stacked one after another. We've definitely left ourselves a lot of work to do. But if we can pick up some points this month, it gives you hope then with the remaining fixtures that once we get out of this month. But also, when you look at it, 2 wins in our last 14 league games. I mean, that is absolutely insanity. No win in our last 5 league games. You know, it doesn't exactly breed a lot of confidence into Spurs fans. Like 2 wins in our last 14 is sackable form. Usually, you know, managers that show that form are gone. But Spurs are sticking by Thomas Frank, not because they believe in him, but purely because they're afraid to make a change. So, you know, at some point, we have to hope that Thomas Frank and this team can turn it around, can start putting points on the board. Now, what I will say is we are unbeaten in the last 3 games, you know, beating Dortmund and Frankfurt and also the draw with Burnley. So hopefully that brings a little bit of renewed confidence. And I would hope that these players, if they want to be able to give Europe a real shot in the last 16, then hopefully they're motivated and gather themselves to be able to pick up enough points, you know, so that they can concentrate on them games when they do come around. And, you know, that would be the ideal thing today. Martin, good to see you, sir. Spurs do have a strong record against Pep Guardiola's City side. Do you think this psychological advantage will play a role in today's outcome, or is that history irrelevant when you're facing a side of City's quality?
Well, if we go on the psychological thing, we've got so many teams that do it to us. So let's hope that this is the one team we can do it to. But yeah, I said to you backstage, it's for me, I'm a bit more optimistic today. I don't know where that's coming from or why. But I don't feel like such a Debbie Downer today, but we ain't kicked off yet. So
do you reckon that Champions League game has sort of given you that boost, the fact that we've made the last?
I think for me personally, then like there's been the performances have got better, and I'm taking heart from that. Obviously, Frank, as you say, the record there, 2 wins in 14 and all that in the league is different in the Champions League. It's the same last year. We were safer in Europe. I know it was a lot easier last year, and it was easy this year. But we're going to get into the crunch time of the Champions League, and you know we're coming up against teams that you know on their day could wipe the floor with us. So, but yeah, I don't know. I've been toying with this the Johnny Heitinger thing. Things have changed since he come in a bit, but if he's got so much influence as the number 2, then what is Frank doing? Because do you know what I mean? It still don't make sense in that way. If your number 2's coming in and giving you an uplift, are the club looking at that, or is it that, or is it just I don't know. I don't like to believe it because I think the number 1 needs help from a number 2. But if number 2's coming in and completely revolutionising, like we said the other day when we looked at the lineup, we can't see him doing anything different. Then next thing you know, the lineup comes out. Paolini is playing right on the centre back, and he did mix it up. And now that's not something we've seen from Frank. It was 4-3-4-3 or 3-4-2-1, however you want to word it. It's different. And the attacking intensity has been a little bit more. There's hope there in performances. I don't think we've got the firepower up top to really put the teams to bed. But let's hope today they all click in, because Moani, hopefully give him some confidence. But I think he's going to start with Solanke. But, you know, his goal coming on the other day and running through. Well, we was only saying the other day, no balls get put through and no one's running on the end of it. And Solanke come on and we got one. So there's signs there. I think it's too late for Frank. I don't think he can turn it around. I think the damage has been done. But, yeah, I'm hopeful today.
I do agree with you in terms of there has been slight changes in recent weeks. He does seem to be trying to adopt a more possession sort of base game by playing this 3-4-3. However, I still think it's very safe and very rigid, side to side, all the way up to the edge of the area, and then very rarely cross the ball in off the back of it for me, you know. And I think Spurs fans would like to see a little bit more risk. And why is it taking this long for him to even adapt the sort of bare minimum sort of possession approach and the bare basic approach? How much of that is down to Johnny Heitinga? I'm not so sure. He's been around 2 weeks now at this point, you know, only 4 or 5 days really on the training pitch. You know, I wonder how much of an influence he's really had on things. But, you know, to your point, there are slow, you know, signs of slow improvements, I would say, you know, especially
something.
Solanke and Moani both
scoring.
Solanke, to your point, and Moani both scoring against Frankfurt midweek. You know, you did need them to sort of grab a goal each in that game to sort of give you any hope or confidence of taking points along these runs, because clean sheets and the defence isn't what's going to get you enough points out of this run. It's bagging a goal up the other end, and we needed Solanke and Moani to sort of both have that little bit of confidence heading into this run for sure. So yeah, I can understand where the confidence comes from, Martin. Fair play to you, my man.
I'm not overconfident, Dave. Don't make it too big. I think I'll just keep the balance to that side a little bit.
No, but I do understand it.
Don't you dare call me confident.
What I will say,
I'll keep going like that, and I've sort of got back to the middle, like you know.
What I will say is it'd be interesting to see how Thomas Frank approaches today. Now, we'll get on to that in a while, but will he go the way he did against Man City earlier on in the season and put the pressure on the back line and look to turn it over and avoid that getting the ball into their danger men? Or do we sit off them and sort of try and counterpunch them for 90 minutes, which you sort of almost feel like the inevitable will end up happening? So it'll be interesting to see what way Thomas Frank goes today. But one quick follow-up question to you, Martin, before we get Steve involved. Do players actually carry memories of past results into games like this? Or is that a narrative mainly for fans and media? Because, like, you know, we sit here today and go, we always beat Man City. Do you think the players feel like that in the dressing room?
No, I don't. I really don't. At the end of the day, we're emotionally invested. They're paid employees. And, you know, there's got to be some ego about it that, you know, come on, lads, we can, you know, we always beat these. But I don't think they have an air of arrogance around it. Like when we rock up at Chelsea know they're just going to get 3 points. I don't think we're that confident. But, yeah, there's got to be players there with history that remember it. And, that, you know, some of them have been there under Ange's tenure and that, and they've come through. They've only known us beating Man City. So, you know, hopefully there's some... Listen, we take anything, but I don't think that our players have got any arrogance or swagger about them walking into any game. Do you know what I mean? But
well, I would hope not. I mean, I'd be worried if they were walking in with arrogance and swagger about how this season has gone. You know, I'd be really concerned. Oh, big up, Giant. Good to see you. Hopefully you're keeping well, and also Joseph as well. Good to see you. And he is attending the protest. Big up, Joseph. If you're there and you get a chance, maybe just check in and let us know if we're still live. You know what this sort of attendance crowd is like. I'm very interested to see that today, Joseph. Stevie, we're going to kick this one off on you, and I've no doubt the two other boys will have something to say on this. But under Ange Postecoglou, Spurs did approach a match against Man City in 2024, which caused a huge divide in the fan base. Some Spurs fans wanted Spurs to lose to prevent Arsenal winning the league, if you remember that whole City till July, a stance that Ange strongly criticised at the time. We're in a similar situation today. City are now 7 points behind league leaders Arsenal, while Spurs sit 14, 8 points above the relegation zone. I mean, where do you stand on this today? Surely, like, you know, we should want Spurs to win today and prioritise our own results, regardless of who it helps, right?
Yeah, absolutely. And by the way, I do apologize for my tardiness this morning. Usually I'm on point and punctual and all that good stuff, but I guess I got the times mixed up. But
No, that was my
we,
fault.
no,
That
no,
was
no,
my
we,
fault.
we got the
fair
times
enough.
mixed up, my man.
Yeah, I thought I saw 9 o'clock. So
Yeah, that's my fault.
anyway, yeah. But listen, when that happened a couple of years ago, I understood. I understood 100% where fans were coming from, because I almost feel the same way when it comes to Arsenal. But that being said, I also feel like it's a loser's mentality. We should not be focusing on what Arsenal is doing at any point of the schedule. We should be focused on exactly what we have to do to kick up the table, because as of right now, I think today, as a matter of fact, both Nottingham Forest and Crystal Palace are playing today, and the winner of that one has the potential to move ahead of us in the table. And when you consider the form of West Ham winning 2 out of their last 3, and all of a sudden now there's a potential threat from them kind of getting above the relegation line, and we're kind of chilling right there, hovering 5 points from the relegation line as well too. We can't necessarily afford to worry about what Arsenal is or what Arsenal isn't doing. We actually have to focus on winning getting these 3 points today. And that should be the entire focus. On top of the fact that I think it's kind of a loser's mentality, wanting to drop a win, wanting to drop 3 vital points just because it potentially could keep Arsenal. I don't know, man. Like maybe it's just me, but I personally think that's a loser's mentality.
Yeah. Look, I sort of understood it.
I understand it. I just don't believe in it.
I sort of understood it under Ange Postecoglou. I think it was a bit later on in the season. The real chance of Arsenal winning the league. Our season was sort of already closing to an end. So I'd never condone it. I'll never ever condone it. But I could see it. Through people's lenses and stuff like that. I can understand it. But I think today, even after today's game, we've got 14, 15 games left in the league. I mean, it's more.
If we beat City and we beat Arsenal, then we've done our job in that way. So why can't we look at it from that point of view?
Right.
Rather than handing over the points, just take it off both of them and let them battle it out, because we ain't in that.
Yeah. No, I definitely agree with that. I mean, Jack, is there a scenario where fans are justified in thinking short-term rivals, or in thinking short-term, which is rivals over Spurs' own success?
I feel like we've been in this scenario so many times. It's just maybe there was just that one ridiculous scenario where, like you say, under Ange, it was the end of the season. We already bottled top 4. There wasn't really much to play for, to be perfectly honest. It kind of was like a very devilish scenario where we really did have to consider what is the benefit of winning this game. Really not a lot, to be perfectly honest. And I think it's almost then poisoned our minds now for a long time, for any other time now that Arsenal are in a situation where they could be potentially winning the league, and then Man City have to pick up points against us in order to try to stop them. But we've been in that scenario so many times before, really. But we still took points off Man City, and Man City still found a way to win the league. We were always kind of the only team that seemed to take points off them every season, really, when they had so many good ones under Pep Guardiola. So I don't know. I'm in a position where I'm going to go into it the way we used to go into it, just hoping to get a win. We never thought about it before until that Ange season, to be perfectly honest, is kind of what I'm saying. It wasn't really something that ever crossed our minds. So I'm going to say that no short-term, benefit or anything like that. No reason to consider rivalries with Arsenal. I'm not trying to play around. I don't know about you, Dave. Sounds like you had a similar reaction. When I saw West Ham went 2-0 up against Chelsea, I was getting actual shivers. I was getting actual real worries of, geez, I think we're going down, with that sort of result. Even still, the fact that West Ham even put up that much of a fight against Chelsea away from home still scared me. I hope they got really rattled by that. I hope they go on a huge losing streak. But that, I was I don't see us going 2-0 up away from home against Chelsea right now. So, yeah, I'll take any points we can get right now. Because, like I said, I have no confidence, to be honest, going into this game. And if we win today, I will completely flip, and I actually will have confidence that we can potentially navigate this February. But right now, I have none. So we need to get a result for me to get confidence again.
Yeah, I don't want to see any City till July. I think Martin made a very poignant point. We've got 2 of them this month. Why not beat both of them and then let them sort of duke it out after that? And I sort of do agree with Stevie. Don't get me wrong, although I understood it last season, and
Or 2
Although I
seasons.
didn't agree with it, it was a bit of fun. It was a bit of fun, especially just to sort of rub it in their noses. Son's
Yeah, I was a bit 50-50 with it. I was like, I get it, I understand why, but me as a person, I couldn't stand there and want
Yeah.
that to happen. Oh, at the same time, I don't want Arsenal to win the league, but at the same time, I don't want to be. We've already had them win it in our ground and rub their nose in it. The last thing we need to do is help them, but at the same time, we've been so down the bottom, we can't afford to think like that. I'll just throw it away. Do you know what I mean? It's
100%.
this year scary, isn't it?
100%. But this is what I've been saying for a long time now at Tottenham, even with cup games and all. Not just games you can afford to throw away. Like if you have any ambition of winning anything, you see every game as an opportunity and a step closer towards what you're trying to build, towards your goal. You should never take any game lightly at this sort of level. As a fan,
when we've lost to the bottom teams, we've got to try and take points off the big teams.
But this is also the thing. Like, you look at a lot of the teams around us, like Wolves, we drew with. Burnley, we drew with. West Ham, we were beaten by. Leeds, we bet. Everton, I think we bet. And then you got Nottingham Forest, who absolutely played us off the park.
Yeah.
And then some of the teams above us as well, that we've lost to. We're losing to absolutely everybody. 2 wins in our last 14 games. We can't afford to go in with this sort of attitude.
Right.
Like, don't get me wrong. If it happens, I'm sure just as a copium, people will fall on that side, going, oh, at least, we help Man City and stuff. But heading into the game, we should want to be looking after ourselves, because if we keep adopting this attitude.
Coming out, but you've got a cushion, but going into it, you just can't.
100%. And the thing is, if we keep adopting this mentality, eventually we will end up paying the price for it. We will end up getting relegated and stuff. We have to start prioritizing what we're doing at Tottenham Hotspur and stop looking at everyone else. And I get it, it's hard. With the shit we've got going on at boardroom. If Daniel Levy says these Asian billionaires, we're sort of in the middle of 2 billionaires duking out for control of the club and stuff like that. We're at that mercy, and I get it's difficult, when things are so tough, not to look around and see what's going on elsewhere. But at some point, we have to start prioritizing our own fucking football club and what we want out of it and our own results, and stop looking for favors off everybody else all the time, or supporting other teams to go on and do something. Why can't we do it? We've got a massive fucking 60-odd thousand seater stadium, state-of-the-art training complex. Everything is in place, for this football club to be a great football club. Bar the ambition at the top. That's why I do urge people to get down and start putting pressure on these guys with the fan-led protests and stuff like that, and then hopefully we can get change there, and then hopefully this club can kick on and we can see a lot more glory days. Like, I can't believe we're here 4 or 5 months after Europa League parade with 200,000 people down there. That should have shown half of this ownership, exactly how great this club can be, and the magnitude and the size of this football club, the fans, everything else. But yet we're sitting here now 4 or 5 months later, worried about being brought down into a relegation battle. It's an absolute shambles, but we cannot afford to have City till July going on today. We've got to prioritise ourselves.
That's it. We, as I say, 2 wins in 14, and we've sat here as fans, not just us, all the Spurs fans, online, offline, in the stadium, in the pubs, at home, wherever. And then you can't be moaning about all them losses and then want to go into this one to give it away. I don't subscribe to that. Do you know what I mean? It's not. I might have been negative recently, but I'm not like, I want us to lose. Yeah. Just can't do it. Especially at this time.
No, geez, I mean, can't afford to throw any games. 14 left. You keep throwing away games. Eventually, you're going to be stuck in a situation where you've got 4 games. You probably have to win 3 of them for survival. You know what I mean? Can't afford to get in that situation.
Just one little thing to add. What I did find kind of ironic is, and pretty hypocritical really, is that a lot of pundits are telling us, that, we can't afford to play around here and want to lose against Man City. But then at the same time, they're backing Thomas Frank and saying that we have to give him more time. I find that kind of ironic, where they're saying that, we can't lose this game because Spurs could slip into a relegation battle. But at the same time, you guys should really be sticking with Thomas Frank. He's a great manager, ride with him until the end, give him tons of time. It's like, okay, which one is it? Because normally we would never be talking about it. That's
English punditry for you, though.
Yeah, I just found that very funny.
Let me ask you guys, do you think that, like, this narrative that surrounds this game now, especially, and it's as long as Arsenal and City are chasing for the title and we keep getting them towards the end of the season, this narrative is going to keep popping up every single year. Do we think it affects the side of the staff and the players in terms of their mindset?
Really hope not.
Yeah, I'd like to think not.
Because it did rattle Ange in the press
No,
conference.
it did. He 100%. He was like, I don't listen to it. I don't watch it. I do. But it ground him down and ground him out. It took a year and a half. Frank, I think he's getting to that point where he's going to start snapping soon. But I think his first press conference the other day, where they never asked him about his job, he must be like, Jesus Christ. Do you know what I mean? But that's what pressure does. And that's where, you know what I mean? People say you've got to be able to handle that pressure. And he's a media darling that they'll like him. So the punditry, like, you've got to stick with him, like they did with David Moyes, because he's worked with him as well at the World Cups. It's like, West Ham fans, you wanted him out. You wrote what you wish for. It's the same sort of thing. Do you know what I mean? That they spin with the managers they like. But when it was Ange and he was something different and he was snappy and they didn't have no time for him. You know what I mean? But I hope the players don't. I don't know. Do they watch it? They must do. They've got a lot of downtime. They must sit and watch YouTube and TikToks and things. Do you know what I mean?
I would really question the mentality of the players, the players, the staff, the manager, if they're at all affected by the fans' mindset going into this game. It's why I question Ange's, because Ange then lost the game against Man City and then somehow found a way to blame us for losing the game. He was saying, there's problems inside and outside the club. And they're like, what do you mean outside the club? Like, how does that have to do with this game? And then he couldn't elaborate on it because he probably just didn't want to, because it would have been ridiculous to blame us for losing the game in which he was in charge of. So I really hope not, Dave.
And he missed that goal on purpose and all that sort of stuff, wouldn't it? It was.
I think that's just, if they in any way are affected by what the fans are thinking going into a game, they really should not be at this sort of professional level, to be perfectly honest.
What I will say is I do think, it comes down to how the manager does handle it in the press conference. I think we spoke about this chat Friday in the members preview. Like with Ange, he sort of got rattled by it.
Yeah.
He felt like everyone was almost questioning his winning mentality, to a large degree, whereas Thomas Frank was sort of asked about the narrative and it hasn't been blown up into something massive. Because he just sort of dismissed it by, look, we want to win this, that, and the other. He didn't get embroiled into, fans' mentality and all that sort of stuff. And it was just sort of glossed over. And I think that's where the difference is. If you as a manager gets rattled by it, you then allow it to seep into the camp. Whereas if you just sort of gloss over it and bat it away, then it doesn't really get inside.
I completely agree. That's very well put.
Yeah, I think that's what Ange done, that us against them. But at the beginning, it was like we're all in it together. Fans have got their part. And when he started seeing a bit of difference, it was like, right, it's us against them. So he changed, you know what I mean? But they must take notice of it. But I don't think it, as professionals, it shouldn't affect them.
Yeah, 100%. Well, you would hope not. But we do forget we are working with a bunch of big babies, in there that like to cry and blame fans for absolutely everything, which is absolutely madness.
Right.
Stevie, anything else you want to add to that before we move on?
Yeah, I'm kind of in Jack's camp there. I would really hope that, the from the coaches, from the backroom staff, all the way to the players don't pay attention, or at least if they hear it, they just kind of dismiss it overall. You would think that game planning would chew up most of their time, right? When it comes to tactical prowess versus team A or team B, you would probably assume that would be on their minds, and not necessarily what fans are saying or what pundits are saying or whatever, what the narrative is around certain players, yada, yada, yada. But that being said, I've always thought that this club was too nice. I always thought these players were too soft to begin with anyways. So it wouldn't surprise me. I mean, we saw it last year when Brendan Johnson got stick online and he had to close down his Instagram because he was getting so much online grief, right? So for a fact that it seeps in certain corners. And that was actually kind of interesting to me because it also gave you a glimpse into the player's psyche as well too, whether or not they actually pay attention to it. And we found out that 100% players do pay attention.
Yeah. Yeah, for sure. Speaking of Brennan Johnson, actually, I remember saying when that video came out with Madison, I remember highlighting how much of a child he was behind the scenes and stuff, that he'll end up, getting booted out of Spurs, and everyone called me a lunatic. He's at Palace now, by the way.
Yeah.
So just on that one. But anyway, let's keep moving, guys. I mean, a fan-led group change for Tottenham is planning protests ahead of today's game, 4 p.m. outside the South Stand. They are encouraging fans to sort of bring scarves, hats, and stuff like that, and they are protesting the ownership today. And there's also a walkout as well. They're asking fans on 75 minutes to sort of walk out, and the protests are against the board's transfer strategy, the poor form of the football club, and the lack of ambition with the ownership. And we'll go to you on this one first, Martin. I mean, how do you feel about the protest? Is it the right moment to make a stand, or does it risk undermining the team at maybe a crucial point in the season?
I'm not against the people that want to do it because they're passionate. They put their money, time, effort, so much into it. It means that much to them. I think they've got every right to protest and do. And I'm not one of them. If you don't like it, you should try and belittle them. And at the same time, I don't think the protesters should make you feel bad for not protesting. I think it's an open book and everyone should be able to choose where they want. But I think the timing of the last one, I think for the fan pressure at the time was right. And then they brought in Gallagher and they done the statement and they reminded us about ambition and all this, that and the other. And I think that just took that right down a notch and took the momentum out of it before it even started. But they put them words out. And we're now, is it tomorrow the transfer window shuts at 7 o'clock or something? Yeah. We ain't bought no one. We started off with 100 million. We've let our top scorer go, and we're going to end up with 140 odd million with the Champions League money. So we've worked out better off than we started, and we're 18 goals down. Whether he's playing or not, but it's just in the big picture. So I think now at the end of the window, I think the momentum for it might be a bit different today. And I think if it's just, as you say, people bring scarves and bring things and they can show a lot more rather than standing out there and feel like one of the protesters as such. But if they can join in a silent or some other way and show their support, I think it'd be bigger. But if we're losing 3-0, you might get the 75 minutes. If we're 2-0 up, they ain't walking. So that's a tough one to do.
What I will say is, I know there'll be a sort of counter argument where going, it's at a really important time of the season. The team need us, get in there and back the team. But when you look at the statements that Romero come out with, the reasons why Harry Kane left, probably part of the reasons why Mickey van de Ven won't sign a new contract and stuff like that, you are backing the team by supporting these protests. You're backing what Romero has, where he's called out the board and stuff like that. So although I understand the counter argument, for me, I think you need to start looking at it. You are backing your best players within the team. All of our best players have left Tottenham over the years. Why? They all say the same thing: ambition, wanting to go and win things. So you are backing the best players in this football team if you do join that protest today, whether that's beforehand or walking out on 75 minutes. Jack, what's your thoughts on the protest today?
I mean, if I went to games pretty much week in, week out, if I was a season ticket holder, I would walk out at 75 minutes. There's so many other more Man City games in the future that you'll be able to go to. Like, this is this is just an amazing opportunity to express in unison what you feel like about this ownership. It could not have gone worse pretty much this season after winning such a major trophy. There's everything from potentially hiring the wrong manager to then not bringing in the right players to not even backing the wrong manager this January, all the injuries that have now reoccurred. Just everything is going wrong for Spurs. Fabio Paratici, that whole ridiculousness, bringing him back and then only for him to leave a couple of months later. It's been a basket case of a season. And I just think that there are going to be plenty more opportunities if you were a fan, especially a regular season going fan, that you're going to see Man City a million more times. I know Martin's saying, oh, what if you're 2-0 up? What if you're 3-0 up against Man City? you'll probably be able to go to another game where you're going to be 3-0 up against City, or you're going to be, in a situation where you're going to be winning against a team. I think you should be walking out at 75 minutes. I don't want to tell anyone what to do, but that's personally what I would be doing, really. I just think the fact that this has been organized in the way it has done, I think people should take advantage of that opportunity, because this doesn't happen this is the
Totally
first time
agree.
I can remember
Well,
it actually happening, to be honest. So I think we should try to do it, to be honest.
Well, I think the one area where people can sort of, because look, the fan base is always divided. It's been like that my whole lifetime. But I think one common ground where everyone can sort of march together on the same ground is the lack of transfers this January to help the situation. The fact that we're only 8 points above relegation, there doesn't seem to be any urgency or any sort of plans. Fair enough, even if their first and second targets weren't available, then get your third target in the door. There seems to be no contingency plans outside of what we're targeting and stuff like that. And if we keep going like this, we're sleepwalking down into relegation. We shouldn't even be down here off the back of winning the Europa League. The managerial appointment in the summer was, showed me their ambition, to be quite honest with you. That's where I didn't really trust this new regime moving forward and stuff, because the manager appointment really showed me their ambition, which they were more fearful of, going down in the Premier League rather than using the Europa League to try and kick on and, breathe a new era of success at Tottenham Hotspur. And within 5 months, we're dragged back down to, the way we felt the previous, 4 or 5 years since Pochettino and stuff like that. And so I do think there is common ground where fans can actually get together and make a stand against this ownership. People are paying the highest prices in the Premier League to go and follow this team. And this is the shit that's served up season in, season out. How are people not fed up with the same shit all the time, every single year being in turmoil? At some point, you have to understand, it's your club. These people are only custodians of the club. The players only represent your jersey for a small period of time. Same with managers and coaches. They all move on. This is your football club, and it's up to you to put the pressure on. And I know some people in the comments are saying that they don't agree with the walkout here. Limpy Down Under, I disagree with leaving the game. Boycott purchases merch before and after games, but not during. And Miss Bunny also says leaving during game is pointless. You're already paid to be inside, so it makes zero sense if you're there or not. I get what you're saying, but when it's a big game covered by Sky, the whole world is tuning in, and you walk out on 75 minutes and that stadium empties out
all around the world.
So all of a sudden, all of the media, everybody, pundits, media, they all have to talk about it. They can't avoid it. It become the biggest conversation in football for the next period of time. And then that's where then people start actually looking into the ownership, looking into the changes. That's where we get drip fed more information, because more people are doing the research, digging into it and stuff. And that's where a lot of Spurs, failures are highlighted. And when that pressure comes on, they either change their ways in order to sort of stave off that pressure, or they look to sell up, But I would argue, I'd also say this, just doing it today is not going to be enough in terms of protests. And these protests now have to become regular every single home game between now and the end of the season to really show your discontent, so that come the summer, we really see drastic changes at this football club. Because if it's only one and done up until the next time we become bad and stuff, this is where people sort of lose buy-in to these protests, lose interest and stuff like that. So it's got to continue.
It would make more of an impact if we was 2-0 up and they walked out. If it's 3-0 but down, but if we was 2-0 up and then fans got up and walked out and showed that solidarity in a winning situation, that would be a massive show of support, like the fans together.
Yeah.
But the interesting thing is, I had Billy T on a couple days ago, and we were discussing this, and I asked him what the benefit of walking out at the 70th minute actually would accomplish, considering for 70 minutes you're inside the stadium. You're buying concessions and you're buying merchandise, and you're doing the things that you would normally do at a match day, in a match day environment. And, if you're protesting Enoch and you're protesting the hypocrisy of how they've handled the club, giving them their money kind of defeats the entire purpose of it, right? Wouldn't it make sense to actually protest and have these players walk out to an empty stadium? Because that also sends an absolutely amazing message that they only got to experience one time during the COVID years, where they were playing behind closed doors, and the protest was outside on the high road, and you had 60,000 fans outside. That would also accomplish the exact same thing of walking out at the 70th minute. Me personally, I think that would send an even louder message, but it is what it is. I mean, you got to start from somewhere, and I think from the standpoint of some of the things that they're protesting against, it's absolutely righteous in my mind. And the one thing that I absolutely cannot stand is the hypocrisy of how this club is being operated. And I think Jack mentioned the Paratici debacle about how he's being booted because he was one of Levy's last pieces of business. But that being said, so was Johan Lang and so was Thomas Frank. And yet for whatever reason, these people are allowed to have the keys to this club. They're the ones that are the stewards of this club, but yet at the same time they're the ones that were appointed at some point in time, and we're sitting here 8 points above the drop. So make it make sense. Make the hypocrisy of this make sense. So from that standpoint, I'm 100% behind this protest. But that being said, it's got to be a little bit bigger. It's got to be far bigger than walking out at the 70th minute.
Yeah. No, absolutely. Well, guys, let me know. What do you think? And Alpesh says here, Dave, are Spurs fans going to leave in the 75th minute today? I mean, what's people's thoughts on that? We'll take a couple of comments here. Who wants to have a stab at this?
I think there will be hopefully a noticeable amount. If it weren't a noticeable amount, that'd be disappointing. I don't think that's to any fault, though, of the people organizing this. It's just at the end of the day, just whether enough people online can see that that's the goal today. And that's really the only way nowadays that you can get people to mobilize, is usually it's through online attention and through people kind of gathering around the same message and the same instructions. And if hopefully they see it and they agree with it, then we get to see a noticeable amount of people walking out. There's already, I think, some sort of attention, at least from various news outlets, about the fact that there is a planned protest. And even when maybe it hasn't been to the same numbers that we would have liked, there's still been some attention towards it via Ali Gold and whatnot. So hopefully we see enough people do it, Alpesh, that there are TV cameras and media that pick up on it, and then it is spoken about afterwards. Hard to predict, though. I mean, I can't predict what will happen, to be honest.
And what I will say, I think, the fact that it's organised for us sort of later on in the game, I think it gives you a good opportunity to get in there and support your team, but also make a stand against the ownership towards the end of the game. But, I think Martin was sort of saying this to me before the game. I do think it depends on the game state. If it's a tight game, 2-2, 75 minutes, how many people are realistically going to walk out on that? If we're winning 3-0, or 3-1 or something like that, do you think people are going to walk out? Not quite so sure.
The only difficult bit about doing that, like when Liverpool done it, it was about ticket prices. They went at match stand. They all want cheaper tickets. They're all prepared to walk out. This one is slightly different in, there's three camps. There's strong ENIC out. There's the ENIC in, and then there's the people that don't really care. They just go every week, watch their football, and they go home, and they don't sit in these spaces and get, involved in all that sort of chat. It's just a little weekend escape, and they go. So it's a bit hard to make an impact, but if everyone was on board it'd be a lot easier. But if it does happen and it's on the telly and the pundits talk about it and the cameras pan around and show a mass exodus at Tottenham being 3-0 up and they're walking out, the message will be strong. If it's just a few hundred that are walking out, it just looks like in the other game that people are going home to get the train early. So, it just depends where you sit, how you feel about it. Do you know what I mean? It's some people just really don't care. They just don't.
Stevie's probably right that probably the best thing to do would be just not to go to the game at all. If you were able to,
that's how you make the impact.
If you were to organize a lot of people not to attend the game, like you see sometimes in Europe, you'll see just the whole fan base pretty much just boycott the game, and then they protest outside the stadium for 90 minutes. That probably would be the best way to go about it. But I don't want to tell them what to be doing, because obviously I'm not in their position and it is difficult to do that. That might be, though, I would say the best way to really gather that attention, because you see a lot of people in the comments here, Dave, saying things like, oh, you have to get behind the team if you're like in the stadium, the players need your support. It's like, well, in order to maybe defunct that argument, you would just not go to the game then, and then the players, no matter what, walk into an empty stadium. And what message does that send as well to the board, to the players, if they actually see people not even attending the game whatsoever? That would send a very powerful message. But I don't it's difficult though. I don't want to try to pretend like as if I know better, as if I'm holier or anything like that.
Right. I think the issue is whether or not, some of these board members sees a packed stadium for 70 minutes, whether or not they're going to actually take it seriously. You know what I mean? Whereas if you protest the entire match and you have 65,000 fans on the high road and you're at an empty stadium, it actually makes them pay attention. It absolutely makes them say, "Oh, okay, these fans actually have power. They have the power to mobilize. They have the power to organize. And if they can do it once, they can definitely do it again. And the last thing they want to do is have a series of matches where nobody shows up.
Yeah.
And they're going to have to take action. And what's funny is, I've heard some people on certain podcasts saying that fans really just don't necessarily have the arm or the strength to make change. And I'm like, no, that's not true at all. That's not true at all. Because, if it were to play out the way that I think everybody hopes that it plays out, they would actually have to react to it. And if it is, the
club is nothing about the fans.
That's exactly right. That's exactly right.
They might get the same revenue off the TV, but the club are nothing without the fans.
Yeah. Well, you can see
them fans there on that parade day. And how did them players feel looking at all them fans while they were on that bus? They had the time of their life. And but if they rode down there on an empty street, hanging a bit of silverware up and no one was interested, that would impact them as well. So the fans do have a big responsibility to the players and that. Whether them upstairs care is a different.
Well, we learned that after COVID, when they're board and players were begging for fans back in for atmosphere and revenue and stuff like that. So we learned that for sure. Let's take a couple more comments here. Alpecious Dave and Jack, have you ever thought of physiotherapy as a side hustle to help the first team out? They need something that actually has a positive outcome to players being fitted. Well, just on that, Jay Harris, a journalist with The Athletic, he has just come out and said that Jed Spence will miss Tottenham's game against Man City today with a calf injury. So that is confirmed there ahead of kickoff. So Jed Spence is out. We've got future.
I'll just add to Alpesh's thing now about you and Jack being therapists for him. After you've been calling them big babies for a few weeks, I don't think you'd be welcomed in that dressing room, Dave. Just saying.
No, but because they learn with me, If things are going well and they're blaming everyone else, I will tell them the home truths that they need, that people inside their camp won't, because I'm not taking off them and stuff like that. Whereas when things go well, I'll be the first one to sit down in this throne, put the king's hat on you, the king's jacket, everything else, and they'll get to realize that about me for sure. Future's bright. Future's Lily White says problem is the fans are massively divided, so protests don't work. All fans need to be on the same page. Sorry, but if you want change, you have to stand up. If you don't, you're part of the problem. Understand what you're saying there, Future's White, Future's Lily White. Big up, my man. Good to see you. Hopefully you're not in your taxi today. Hopefully you're at home chilling. But what I will say is, I think there has to be a recognition that, all the noise made on social media, not all of them are match day going fans, and there's people that live across the world that just can't get there for financial reasons, especially now with the price of everything going through the roof and stuff, through financial reasons and stuff. But they feel like they are playing their part by talking about the problems, and stuff, by posting things online and stuff like that. But what we actually need is the actual match day going fans, to sort of represent us to a large degree and sort of, make that stand for us, at the end of the day. But, I think there has to be a realization that some people that do speak about online, they just physically can't get to the game or can't be there. And, that's where you do need the people going to the match to sort of step up, to represent the rest of the world.
Do you think there is fans out there that are actually quite happy to go and be in the position we're in and just plod along, happy go lucky?
I do think there's a fair portion that just don't care. They just want to go to Tottenham on the weekend, enjoy their day out and go home. Then I also think there's a group of people that just don't like protesting, don't like showing discontent. There's a group of people out there that believe protests are disruptive, that the way out of this and the way forward is to back the team, and stuff like that. So there's many different sort of mindsets out there on why people don't want to join the protests and stuff like that for sure. We've got this from Mace on the case. Dave, after the Newcastle game, there's 12 days until the Arsenal game. Is it possible to sack Frank then? It would give someone the next 12 days to have a good look at everything. Love you guys. Come on, you Spurs. Well, I really think it depends on how these next 3 games. You've got City today, Manchester United next week, and then Newcastle in the midweek. After that, then you got a 12-day gap between this game and the Arsenal game. Maybe that is what they're looking at. You've got the chaos of the transfer window closed and stuff like that, So, it's not going to affect your transfer window or anything like that. And, if we lose all 3 of them games and you are dragged down into that relegation battle, I think they would have no choice but to make that change over that 12-day period and give a new guy a chance to come in and work and stuff. But I wouldn't say they should have to wait for that. The fact that they didn't really sack him after West Ham when it was so easy to do so, and I think everyone would have accepted it. The fact that they kept it in, which was hard to do at the time, I think we are just going to see Tottenham and Frank with a marriage of sort of convenience to somewhat towards the end of the season. And he will be here for these European games, to be honest with you, because I'm not being funny, but when you look at when Man United got rid of Amorim, they brought in Carrick, even though they had Man City and Arsenal back to back. Went and won both of them games. The new manager bounce and stuff like that. And they've done it in the middle of chaos. So it's not impossible for us to do it and find the right solution. We shouldn't have to wait for this 12-day period and shell more results under this guy. I mean, there's more than enough evidence to show that it's not working out already for this guy to lose his job. The only hope is the fact that the board are persistent with him. You hope he finds a solution and he comes out the other end. So let's wait and see on that one, my man. But good to see you in the building. We've also got Lily White, India. Good to see you. About 3 million net spend compared to the promised 150 million war chest, plus Champions League money, which I believe is another 50 million. Brennan Sale, bad scouting, no clear pathway for the youth, bad managerial appointment, no consistent philosophy. Hence the protest. Absolutely spot on. And I mean, in all honesty, if you are coming into a January transfer window, and just from a footballing perspective, the whole world is looking at what's going on at Tottenham and knows why you need players in the door because of injuries and all, why would you come out and announce how much you've got to spend in a January transfer window? Because all that does is drive up the prices, of the transfer fee, the agent fee, what the player's asking you for, because everyone's looking and go, well, Tottenham have money. If we can sell him for an extra 10 million, that allows us to bring in 2 players then and stuff like that. It's absolutely mind-boggling. It's such a dumb strategy. I can't believe we've done it, to be brutally honest with you. Because now when you go looking for players, people are slapping an extra 10, 15 million on top now because they know you've got the money and they all need it. It's absolutely mind-boggling and dumb, to be honest with you. Big up, Adrian. Good to see you.
There's over 300 in the house watching us, everybody. Not even 100 likes. So please, everybody, if you could smash it, would appreciate it. And close to 1,000 people, looks like, watching us over on X as well. So if you are on X, appreciate you guys watching us. But if you wanted to join us over on YouTube, we would appreciate it. It does help out us a ton. Just wanted to put that out there. And also, if you want to do a Faz or what Logan has to support the channel, we would appreciate it.
Big up, Jack. Really appreciate that. Also, big up, Adrian. Good to see you. I suppose you're going to the game today. Let me know if you're going to the protest. We've got Mark New in the house. Good to see you, Mark. Hopefully you're keeping well, sir. Alpesh says he is going to walk out today. Fair play to you, my man. I know Joseph is in the chat or was in the chat. Let us know if you're doing the same today, Joseph. We've got Harmless Potato, so that's the end goal. 2 minutes on Sky Sports. I don't. It's not that that's the end goal. I think that's the aim, to sort of try and really highlight to everybody outside of Tottenham, what's going wrong, why there is protests and stuff like that. And so that the scrutiny starts being put towards the ownership and stuff like that, I think is sort of more the end out goal on that, Harmless Potato. But look, like I said, I understand people who don't agree with it during games and stuff like that. I can understand that point of view. But for me, you got to understand, when these people are organizing protests, it doesn't matter what game they pick, what way they go about it. There is going to be criticism and scrutiny. Why are you doing this? Why are you doing that? Why are you not doing this? Why are you not doing that? Everyone's going to have to say on it. But at the end of the day, they've got to do what they feel is right, and hopefully people can get behind it. And then we've also got Singularity in the house. Afternoon all. Good to see you. Maybe just to wrap up the protest talk, boys. From the board's perspective, do protests accelerate the pressure on them or to sort of change and stuff like that? Does it actually work, I suppose, is maybe where Harmless Potato and other people are coming from? Is it a pointless exercise?
Well, it doesn't do any harm. At the end of the day, it draws some attention. It draws some sort of pressure on the board. Whether you think it's significant or not, of course, is up for debate. But to say that it does any detriment to the fans, I think would be disingenuous. Like, of course, it does something at the end of the day. It either gets more fans on board. It could, if anything, confirm with other fans, like if they feel frustrated with the club, the fact that they see even just 10 other people that are in the same position as them, at least they feel like, you know what, there are people that agree with me. There are people that feel frustrated by what has been going on at this football club. So at least it confirms and it validates people's opinions and their feelings around the football club and things going downhill. At the end of the day, it can't do any harm to it. So that's what I would say.
Yeah. Yeah, look, at the end of the day, some of the great changes across the world have come through people protesting and showing discontent.
Yeah, as I say, it can't do any harm, but I think to start with, this is not like, one protest and everything they're going to set up. It's starting a momentum and it has to build. At the last one, that statement and buying Gallagher just pissed on their chips, do you know what I mean? But now at the end of that window, there might be a few more that have gone, well, hold on a minute, they ain't doing what they're saying, and they're that. As I say, but then we see it with Vivian the other week when that bloke tried talking to her. She just walked off, ignored him, and then people started going, oh, it's a man with a drink attacking a woman. I don't buy that. It's not, do you know what I mean? He was just, she's the boss, she's in charge, she's the owner. It doesn't matter what sex she is. I'm sorry. He wasn't running that aggressive and waving a bottle in her face like on a Friday night. He just happened to have a drink in his hand as she walked past. And, she just looked at him, turned around and walked off. Are they really interested in what people say? Because they still get their money. What will hurt them will be the brand. If they are looking to sell and the brand is affected, which means the price is affected, that's the only way you will get them to take note, in my personal opinion.
Right. What does the protest mean in actual dollars and cents? Right. What does the protest mean in terms of value to their bottom line? Right. Because they don't. Let's just kind of put it all out there. Right. The board members don't act out of emotion. Right. They're acting in the best interest of the football club in terms of dollars and cents. And so from that standpoint, how much does it actually affect their bottom line? I would probably assume very little, because again, every single time we have a home match in the Premier League, what are the odds that it's going to be sold out? Even midweek in the Champions League, coming off a bad loss, you still get 50,000 fans in that stadium, 40,000 fans. They're still showing up enough where it still kind of pads their bottom line. And so from that standpoint, that is the question. Once it actually starts affecting their bottom line, I would probably assume they start paying attention. Mm-hmm. And if that means that it's a slow build towards the end of the season and the final 3 home matches of the season are heavily affected, I would probably assume they start paying attention.
Yeah, no, 100%. And look, at the end of the day, I think, if I think the biggest thing is if fans are willing to walk out, in 75 minutes, I think makes a massive statement. But also, the fact we haven't sold out any Champions League games this year, for the North London Derby, you can still get tickets available, which is unheard of. Usually, as soon as they come out within an hour, they're sort of gone and snapped up, and you're looking around. Even for a lot of the big games this year. Once that becomes bigger and it starts hitting them in the pocket even more, and these tickets aren't being snapped up because people would rather just watch the game from home or go and do something else than sort of use their last bit of money to get to Tottenham Hotspur and stuff like that, then at some point, the club will have a decision to make in that regard, going, well, which, our relationship is beyond irreparable now. We can't get people are making a stand against us now. They're not filling out the stadium, and at what point then they look at their money being affected and their inheritance being affected and look to sell on, or at least change their ways. We've got Ratty Man here says, what's the point of sacking the manager when the real issue is Enoch? We've been shit for 6 years, so have all 6 managers and 3 caretakers been shit too? No, they haven't. This is what I tried to say. When we had someone of a Jose's caliber or Conte's caliber, real world-class level, we should have stuck behind them. But everybody want to change. And I get that Enoch is a huge, huge problem. I'm on that bandwagon with you. But I'm also not prepared to back the wrong manager to make a statement against the owner. At the end of the day, I can make a statement against the owner because I do think they deserve a lot of, pressure put on them, and they do have to start taking accountability and stuff like that. but I'm certainly not going to back the wrong manager either. You know, at the end of the day, Frank has been given a fair opportunity. He's been given transfers, maybe not enough, or maybe not as many as we would like, but he's been given players. He keeps benching a lot of them so far this season. He's been given a coaching backroom team, you know, more than any other manager. We're not really seeing the benefits of that on the football pitch either, and we are heading towards relegation. At what point is it to say Enoch aren't doing a good job? And they also brought in the wrong guy, and he's not doing a good job. It's okay to admit that. What I'm not going to do is start backing the wrong guy, you know, in order to have a pop at the ownership. You can have a pop at both if you don't see both being good enough. At the end of the day, in an ideal world, if we were to give Frank more players now, in an ideal scenario and everything was going right at board level, do I see Frank really taking us to the promised land? No, I don't. Do I see Frank consistently getting us up there to challenge or going on cup runs? No, I don't. So I'm not going to back the guy just to have a pop at Enoch. I can have a pop at Enoch and also give my reasons why I think Frank isn't good enough for the job either.
Antonio Conte won 71% of his home games at Spurs. He won 71%. 71% of his home games. Thomas Frank has won 18% of his home games. To describe them with the same brush of paint, to describe them in the same brush of paint of all being shit is completely disingenuous, because at the end of the day, one manager was much more successful and far better than the other. Absolutely. Dave said what's spot on is that we all have the same frustrations around Enoch. Completely agree. But to say that every manager has been shit is just completely off.
Conte and Mourinho, we're the only club they've never won anything at. So it don't say nothing about them. It says a lot about us.
Yeah. And the thing is, you look at it, right? Conte was sacked in 4th. Jose was sacked in 7th and wasn't given a chance to take control of a cup final. They'd rather put Mason in charge.
That was mental. That was
mental.
You know, and Pochettino, the great Pochettino, was sacked the following season in 14th after bringing us to a Champions League final. The fact that this guy is down there and we've got, like, you know, he's not going to get us anywhere near a Champions League final. He's bowed out of both cups at the first sign. We've given him more of an opportunity to get this up and running than any other manager before, and he's failed spectacularly. Like, the running joke coming into this season is, oh, well, at least we're not 17th. He's brought us nearly there within 5 months. You know, at the end of the day, he's just, yeah, exactly. But he's just not good enough for this football club. Everything the guy comes out and says, he doesn't inspire people in the press conference. He doesn't inspire fans. Can't even inspire the owners to get in more players for the guy, even though we're shelling injuries left, right, and center. He can't inspire the team to get out there and put in consistent performances week in, week out. And at the end of the day, that's his job as a head coach, to inspire the collective, to get the best out of the collective. And he is failing on that. And I'm not going to sit here and pretend he's not. Just have a pop at Enoch. I'll have a pop at them in their own right, but also judge Frank on his own right. But look, guys, let's keep it moving, because it'd be interesting to see where, you know, the priorities lie this season. Despite being in 14th place in the league, Spurs are performing well in Europe. Where do we think the priorities should lie for the rest of the season? A league recovery or a Champions League run? And we'll go to you on this one first, Stevie.
Are you sure you want to start with me on this one? All right. Well, here's the thing. I get the sense that, you know, the players are kind of in the same boat as they were last year. I think they realize exactly where they're at in the standings, and I don't know, man. It's the same crew that pretty much by and large gave up on the season last year. They understood exactly where their bread and butter was, laid out, and that was in the Europa League last year. And we saw those performances, by and large, that were absolutely spectacular. The only difference is we're by and large not seeing a tremendous amount of rotation within the Premier League to the Champions League. But that doesn't mean that these players are still not getting up for Champions League performances, right? They look like a completely different crew. Going into the Champions League, a lot of that has to do with the level of opposition in the league phase. But that being said, it's like the reason why I know. By the way, I see the expression on your face, Jack. But what I will say is, like, look at this team versus Sunderland and how they approached it. West Ham, Brentford on the road, Nottingham Forest on the road, and you see it, like, teams that, like, on paper we probably should actually have a good go against. And they come out absolutely flat, or they take their foot off the gas at halftime and allow teams to get comfortable and get back in, and we end up dropping points from winning positions, or we get played off the entire park. And yet we go into a Champions League fixture against a team like Borussia Dortmund, and we look awesome. From the opening whistle, we look absolutely awesome, or at least we keep our head in the game until the 70th, 80th minute before rotation actually comes in and we finish off a game. Or we go to Frankfurt and put in a complete performance. And then we go back to the Premier League and we cannot carry the same momentum over. And so here's the thing. It's like I naturally have to ask the question if these players, again, are focusing a little bit more on the Champions League versus the Premier League because there's nothing there to win. And so as long as they stay above the drop, that's good enough because they still have a shot at winning a trophy in Europe. Regardless of whether or not you or I think that they're actually going to pull it off, it's still a trophy out there that's still gettable for them. And they feel like they have enough talent to be able to actually get there. And so that's the whole thing. I'm just asking the question because I have the impression that these players have that mindset where there's just nothing left to accomplish in the Premier League and they're still in the Champions League.
Yeah, no, I get what you're saying, but I would hope there's a real realization within the camp. If they don't win a Champions League, which is going to be harder to win in the Europa League.
Oh, I get it.
How are they going to be playing European football here next season? Then it'll be the very ones come the summer, kicking their toys out the pram, going, I want out of this club because I believe I should be playing in Europe's best competition. But yet, you're going to fail in nearly every single league game this season. I mean, I'm not buying that excuse, If you leave the club in a position when you've done all you can to try and help us qualify for Europe next season, and whatever else, and we failed because of reasons outside of your control, I can understand that. But when you're on the football pitch and you're putting in some of the performances, you are giving up some of the goals you are and stuff like that, I don't want to hear it from these guys. So they have to have a realization within the camp that they also need a backup plan. Every great businessman has it,
sure.
And use the league as your bread and butter to sort of secure more European football next season. If it's not on the Champions League scale, at least secure European football for this club next season. Jack, do you believe that the club can make a push in the league towards a European spot? Do you think it's salvageable now, or do you think it's gone beyond that now? Do you think it's gone too far?
Probably under a different manager, an interim manager. I think it could be possible.
Even if they were to make the change now, do you not think they've left it too long now?
Oh, they 100% have. I mean, that's where I'm just amazed by how this last January was just the best opportunity I'd ever seen in a long time for Spurs to gather a huge amount of momentum. Like, it was one of the easiest set of fixtures and runs that we could have ever asked for, and we just completely bottled it. And Thomas Frank, just found a way to not even pick up a single win in like 5 games, is like what you said. Like, we have, I think, outside of Wolves or something, I think we had, like, in the month of January, we had the second worst form of any team outside Wolves or something like that in the league. And we had some of the easiest opponents to come up against. So I just don't have a ton of confidence of us now all of a sudden, picking up January or picking up any sort of European spot type of form. It's just, there was a great opportunity to do it, but I think we completely ruined it, to be perfectly honest. That's why I'm still very frustrated by that. And I just thought that was the best chance for Enoch or for the Lewis family to sack Thomas Frank. At this stage, they might have to prioritize one competition over the other. But then again, they only have Premier League games to worry about. So I guess, here's a chance, I guess, you only have this one competition to worry about anyway. So try to pick up wins if you can.
Well, what I will say is I do certainly think this month is make or break. Right now, Brentford are beating Aston Villa away from home 1-0. And we are, 8 points behind them now, and they're in 7th. So them places are getting more and more limited the more the games pass by. So I think this run of fixtures is make or break for our European hopes, because I'm telling you now, there's no way we come out of this run of fixtures and survive a bad run going, we're still 6 points off European place. There's no way. We'll be at least 10 off it, if not more. So this run now is make or break. And it's not ideal that we've left ourselves in this situation, but that's the start reality of it. After that, if we come out this month and we're way off it, we are then sort of just scrapping for enough points to survive and stay in the Premier League and secure a mid-table finish. So, we've got to really make a good run for it this month. And you would hope with some of the rhetoric coming out from the players' mouth after the game against Frankfurt, I think they do realise this month now they can just concentrate on Premier League and trying to claw themselves up the table. They've all said about switching that mentality now and bringing it to the Premier League. So let's hope they live up to their words and at least make a good goal for it. Because one thing I don't want to be doing coming out of this run is sitting there trying to survive relegation. That would be seriously, seriously depressing. So this month is absolutely crucial within that. Martin, Stevie mentioned about this squad, that they think they can win the Champions League. And I agree with him. I have no doubt in their minds that they believe they can. Can this squad realistically push on both fronts, do you think? League,
No.
sort of trying to get Europe and go for Champions League.
Listen, from the players' point of view, last year they've said, right, let's do the Europa League and we won't worry about the league. We're not going to get relegated. And it worked. That gamble ain't necessarily going to pay off. But is their mindset thinking, well, we can have a crack at the Champions League here? But then I don't like that risk of the league thing, because if we're now like 17th and then let's say we finish 15th, 14th this year, the mindset going into next year and all that is you're not good enough for the league. So, and then you ain't got Europe now because you finished 14th and you ain't won the Champions League. So you're not even in the Conference League. So then you're doing the Man United thing, one game a week. So then you have to prioritise the Premier League. Why not prioritise the Premier League and the Champions League? Let's see how far we get as a bonus rather than the other way around. Now, the priority should have been in January, picking up the points where it was a bit easier. But because they didn't, now the pressure's on to pick up points in February, because at the end of February, you're in March. And then you're down to getting into single-figure games. And then the Champions League starts again. And if you ain't got them points on the board, then you've really got a change. As I say, a couple of weeks back, we were close to them fourth spot. Now you're saying, well, we're 8 points from seventh. So the things are changing again, and it's getting further and further away. So whatever they do, forget the Champions League. It don't start till March now, is it? So forget the Champions League. It's parked up. Bring that momentum and everything into the Premier League. Get the points on the board. Get us higher up the table. Then worry about the Champions League. Don't just go, oh, well, I don't like it. You've got to. Well, the club said we were there to challenge on all fronts. So if the club are now going to allow a situation like last year and concentrate on one for the other, then they're lying again, aren't they? So you can't believe anything that comes out of the club. But someone in that dressing room, i.e. the manager, saying, listen, Champions League's done now. We've got through. We've done brilliantly there. But now is the time to hit this Premier League hard. I know we've got tough sort of fixtures, but you get out there, and if you can't beat Man United, Man City, Newcastle and Arsenal, you ain't going to beat Bayern Munich, Real Madrid and Barcelona. So if you think you can do the Champions League, you better do it here first.
Yeah, absolutely spot on. I couldn't agree more with that. So hopefully, we see an upturn in some results this month, even though, the fixtures are stacked against us. Hopefully there is a realization in the camp that if they want to be able to give the Champions League a good go and get bigger bonus and stuff like that, you've got to prioritize the Premier League this month and see what you can do out of it. Jack, given Man City's attacking quality, what should Thomas Frank's tactical approach be today? Do Spurs lean into the bravery that worked in the 2-0 win over City earlier on in the season, where we pressed City high, forcing errors and sort of trying to play on the front foot? Or is this a game that demands a more pragmatic, controlled approach, given City are probably in a different space right now?
Kind of damned if you do, damned if you don't. I think Spurs would probably benefit from trying to take some of the green shoots of that previous Man City performance, where they tried, especially being at home, like you could try to maybe come out the gates quickly, try to press them, try to put them under pressure, go man for man like we did against Man City, and see if you can benefit from it, turn the ball over in some good areas like we did, look to try to hit them on the counter in transition, because we only have, if it's really true, if we really only have 12 players, I think you're damned if you do, damned if you don't. Because if you just sit back, shuffle from side to side, you'll probably eventually lose.
Yeah.
And you'll still tire yourself out. Or you could try to really go for it in a 45-minute spell. And then, as we know, Dave, kind of like, what was it against Dortmund, where we only had so many players available? You know that at some point, then you'll probably have to sit back a little bit. But at least you have some sort of lead to hold on to. At least you have some sort of result that you can cling on to. So I would say try to go for it. Ideally in the first half. I would understand if they maybe did sit up a bit pragmatically in the first half and then went for it in the second. But me personally, I think we could really benefit from trying to go for it in the first half, try to score early, try to use the crowd momentum if there is going to be any crowd momentum, and then look to try to hold on to the result at some stage. I think maybe, just try to take maybe some of the Man City performance, and then also maybe knowing that you only have so many players, try to repeat the Dortmund performance, knowing that you only have so many players.
Do you think we are? Do you think it's more sustainable to sit off with this 3-4-3 than what it was the 4-2-3-1? Do you think we're a bit more tighter or a bit more solid if we were to sit off an opposition sort of playing this formation than what we were in the 4-2-3-1?
I mean, if you have a defensive manager in Thomas Frank, and then you have a back three or a back five, you should always be a little bit more solid because you just have more center backs to deal with crosses. You have more defenders, in the penalty area to deal with any shots on goal or to deal with any dangerous moments. So if you were somehow more open, I would really question you as a manager, to be perfectly honest, if you're not able to look somewhat more solid defensively with a back three or back five. But yeah, I mean, in a game like this where we already know that we only have so many players available, it's probably a good thing that I guess we've already been practicing this back three, this back five. It could probably benefit us knowing that it's not just completely out the blue and we're doing it for the first time. So it could be a good thing that we've had this back five to work with the last few weeks. It might actually come in handy for either holding on to a lead or at least staying in the game as long as possible.
100%. 100%. Just quickly, Kurt Smith. I don't know. I'm thinking about it. I don't know whether to sort of sit back and watch it with family or whether to do a watch along for it. But I'll let you know closer to the time, my man. It's not until the end of March or something like that. So we'll see. Tune back in and I'll let you know, my man. But to Jack's point, look, I think the risk is if you go and press Man City with how well they're sort of playing, they're in a different state than what we played them earlier on the season. There's a lot of new signings being bedded in. The goalkeeper wasn't as good with the ball and stuff. And it's a tactic that really worked on the day. I think the risk if you go and do that today is that Man City are probably better equipped to be able to exploit what we've done to them, play out and hit you, where you've got bodies committed up the field and sort of punish you on the back end of it. But I would also argue, I think where the success came from in the 2-0 was we eliminated them getting the ball into their better players where they can damage you. We went after their weaker players on the ball across the back line in goals, and it really worked out that day. And that means we limited the threat that Man City posed, and we limited all of their danger men as well. Whereas I think, if you sit off them, you don't leave as many gaps. Maybe you're a bit more solid than the 3-4-3. But I suppose the big risk is you sort of almost think the inevitable is going to happen. So, it's sort of risk versus reward today. And I would argue I'd like to see Frank take the same approach we did against Man City at their place. If we can go at them at their place and pick up a 2-0 win, then we should be showing that same bravery at home, in my opinion. Because I think you show that bravery, you get the fans behind your back, especially if you show it early on and you're getting success and stuff like that. And then all of a sudden you put Man City on the back foot. Their confidence then is a little bit shaky. And if we can show a bit more quality in the final third, then who knows? Maybe we can come out the right side of the scoreline today. But I'm one of them. I do prefer to try and be brave with my football. I like to see us go and press them nice and high, commit bodies up the field in that regard. Martin, Thomas Frank has used the 3-4-3 system, or I'm probably expecting him to use that again today, which seems to be working in Europe. Should this be the permanent formation in the Premier League as well, do you think? Or do you think it's just sort of different horses or something like that for different courses?
Horses for courses. Yeah. I think it comes down to personnel and the approach. I'll speak about that a lot because I think from Frank, regardless of how he sets up and what players he does and what formation, if he's telling them to sit back and not attack, then it doesn't matter. But if he can play an aggressive thing and, say, look, we're going to do 50%, make sure we're at the back. But any opportunity, if you can get forward and get at these, then let's get at this. Because, listen, we all know Man City haven't had the best defence over the last few years. You can get at them. And so I'd like to see him go for it today, because if he comes out and waving the white flag like he did against Chelsea and Arsenal, then we've got no hope. But I think we can get out. And I said to you earlier, I'm optimistic about today. The one thing that worries me is January, February is when Man City switch on. So that's the only thing. But to go with the personnel, he has got no choice in his personnel. It is what it is. He hasn't got that luxury of picking a team in the system where that might confuse him and he overthinks a bit too much. So when he's down to the bare bones, we've seen a few better performances. He has to work with what he's got. When he's got a few more options, it seems to be he tinkers around too much. So, but definitely 100%. We're out. If we can go into it thinking we went to there and we done it, we can do it at home. And that's the instruction you got to give them. That believe that we can do it, and they've got half a chance. If you tell them to just go out there and sit back and let's hope we can pull away a 0-0, then he's crazy.
I think you're absolutely spot on in terms of, the fact that he can't tinker around with things. He seems to be getting more out of it, which is something I argued he should have done at the very beginning of the season. Tried to put out that consistent 11 to build up that cohesion, that confidence and stuff like that. And naturally, rotation will be forced throughout the months, whereas I think he sort of forced it way too early. But he seems to be getting better out of it now. He's got less options available to him. Just quickly before I throw a question at Stevie, Spurs Lion on Twitter, if anybody knows him, he seems sometimes he gets things right, sometimes he gets things wrong, but he has gone what he reckons is early team news. Vicario in goals, Adoji, Dragusin, Romero, Paulinia, Archie Gray, will form your back line. Basuma and Gallagher will be your midfielders. Xavi and Matisse Tel will be your sort of inside number 10s, and then your Solanke will be your striker. That's what he reckons the team is today. The team is out in about 15 minutes time or so we will let you know as soon as it comes out, but it'll be interesting to see how spot on he actually is. Skunk works, yes. Spence is out today with a calf injury, which is disappointing, my man. But Stevie, what do you believe Frank's thinking is behind this 3-4-3? Does the 3-4-3 better protect Spurs defensively, or is it to maximize our sort of attacking outlets and make us play more on the front foot?
It's designed for us to play a little bit more on the front foot, but I guess the question, if we're going to be able to sustain, a front foot approach, it all depends on our defensive personnel, right? Because yes, it is about how we're going to attack, but it's also predicated on how Man City is going to counterattack. And one of the things that allows you to actually stay on the front foot is understanding that who's going to be on that back line, who's going to be protecting over the top. And if what I heard was correct, that both VDV and Danso are out, and your lone soldier is going to be Christian Romero, I would probably assume it kind of defeats that. It defeats the purpose, right? You're not going to be able to sustain front-footing attack for both, just considering that, one of the things that, Man City is very good is at breaking pressure and moving the ball through central areas. And that allows a guy like, Erling Haaland to absolutely destroy back lines. And so from that standpoint, I'm kind of curious to see exactly how this is going to play out in the first 25 minutes and whether or not Thomas Frank is probably going to abandon it. Just considering how quick Man City can actually just break lines, right? So the question is that going to be something that is absolutely sustainable, or is that something that's going to get ditched within the first 25 minutes, and all of a sudden we're going to have 10 behind the ball because we're going to have to? That is going to be the $1 million question today. Can Spurs nick a goal in the first 15, 20 minutes?
Well, I think that's one of our big problems, I think, a lot of the time, is when we are on top in the game in terms of possession and forcing the opposition back. One of my big things is, are we going to, take a goal with us and sort of get our rewards? And a lot of times we don't. But, I also feel like when I reflect on them periods, it's not like we've created a host of really good chances either within them spells, And I think that is an area where I do think if he is going to persist with this 3-4-3, he has to instruct these players once they get the ball in and around the box to start taking more risk, to start creating better chances rather than recycling it all the time and waiting for that perfect moment. Going forward isn't about perfect moments. It's about taking risk and forcing your own luck. And that's what I would like to see Thomas Frank sort of do within this 3-4-3. I think it works till it gets up in around the box, but then there's too much rigidity, within that formation. If the idea is, if you're going to get the ball out wide, send players in after it, flood the box if you're relying on crossing the ball in. But we don't do that. We usually just leave one striker in the box and instruct everyone to sit on outside it. So if they clear it, we can pick it up again. And again, it's just a pragmatic way of viewing playing attacking football. If you want to change your ways, you instruct them players to get in the box. You instruct one or two positioning to sit around the edge of the box to pick it up. You don't need to sit the rest of them outside and just leave your striker in there as the lone man. Get in there and show them support. Go after the ball. Look to go and force the issue. We do it with set pieces when we get corners and free kicks into the box. So why can't we do that when we work it all the way up to the opposition final third and work it out to the right or left? A lot of times it just ends up being recycling, boring. We end up losing the ball. We retreat, and then all of a sudden they're on us. But you know what's the worst thing is? Burnley create better chances than us with their possession. West Ham create better chances than us with their possession in these points. And that's what it comes down to at the end of the day. We can have all the possession we want, but if you're not creating anything, you're fucked. All it takes is one moment. We nearly seen that against Frankfurt. Despite dominating the first half, they hit the crossbar right at the end of the half. They score that. All of a sudden, it's a different game. So, we've got to start.
And that one that he bluffed when he come in on his own, I just let him go in on his own. He just cushioned it to Vicario. That 2 gilt-edged chances they missed there.
Yeah. And this is the thing. I just hope Thomas Frank, realizes that when you do have the possession, you are on top like that. You've got to take risks. It's embarrassing when some of the other teams that are worse than us take more risks in possession. Absolutely embarrassing. Jack, we have talked a lot about Spurs' sort of the way we want to see us play today and stuff like that. But what are Man City's current vulnerabilities? Where can Spurs realistically hurt them today?
I think this whole season, they've not been nearly as defensively solid as they might have been in the past. Probably in the past, they were defensively solid because they just kept possession so long and they had players in the right areas to deal with some of their counterattacks. This season, they, for whatever reason, have just looked a lot more vulnerable. Maybe it's just down to the personnel or I'm not sure what, but it just seems like they're not nearly as good as dealing with some of the transitions and some of the counterattacks as they have been in the past. And I think another thing that Guardiola has always been susceptible to, I'm not sure again why that is, but for years it's always been kind of balls over the top, balls in behind. Usually have always actually been a struggle for him. And I think you could point out a lot of performances in either the Champions League where Man City or his Barcelona teams have just come completely undone by a simple through ball over the top or in behind the back line. And if they're going to be with Kusanov tonight, like you pointed out, Dave, that's probably a real weakness. I think he's been a liability for them. Some of their fullbacks at times have been caught out and not really been good enough or sharp enough defensively. So I would say maybe if we can try to transition on them in as quickly as we can, especially if we win the ball in midfield or if we win the ball in a good area, because they're normally a team that is just so, they're pragmatic in possession is what you would say. Like they're not big risk takers, Man City. They kind of just sort of pass it side to side, pass you to death. But if we were able to turn the ball over in dangerous areas, all of a sudden you can transition on them like we did actually in the first performance. Think about it. Like some of the goals that we scored were really just down to them, just giving the ball away in some bad areas. And then we just quickly pounced on them and were able to score from it. So I would say try to, as best we can, when we win the ball, get up the pitch as quickly as possible and see if you can catch them out with how few players they leave back there.
100%. And look, for me, I think Kusanov is the guy to target today. The guy turns like he's on a roundabout, so any sort of quick movement in around him, you're in behind him. Even with long balls, stick Solanke on him, tell him to go and compete with him. You try and get the flick on in behind him, structure left winger to sort of come in, make that run and get on the end of it. A bit like what Kane and Son used to do at times. But for me, I'm telling Solanke all day, make your runs off Kusanov. I'm telling Xavi Simons, play the ball in behind him. Udeberg, put the ball in behind him. Let's test them. That's what I want to see us do going forward today. And in terms of defensively, for me, you show them Man City wingers on the inside with the talent they've got, and we are in big trouble. Show them on the outside. Make them cross that ball. Something that Guardiola doesn't really want these wingers doing a hell of a lot of the time. He's just putting aimless crosses into the box. So show them on the outside, show them down the byline and contain them like that. Don't allow a Doku, a Semenyo, or Shirky, whoever it is, to cut on the inside. Because as we've seen with Semenyo against Bournemouth, he's going to punish you. Shirky, despite what people think of him, his finishing is absolutely elite.
He's great.
He is going to punish you. You let Doku on the inside, you're either going to have to bring him down or he's going to punish you. So show their wingers on the outside today. And by doing that, then you don't allow the likes of Silva or Foden because they'll play sort of just in either side behind Haaland. You don't allow them to get on the ball and pose a threat where they can play these little dinky balls through or over the top and stuff like that. Show them on the outside today and contain them on the outside. So I'd hope, that's what we do today, and I think it'll give us a fair chance of getting something out of Man City. Guys, I want to talk a little bit about Wilson Odegaard, and then if we have enough time, about who's going to lead the line tonight. Jack, I'll let you go first because I know you're a big fan of this boy, Free Willy. Wilson Odegaard has been asked to fill the role that was occupied by Mohamed Simmons for large parts of this season, and the signs lately have started to be positive when it comes to Wilson. Odegaard has impressed in recent outings. Is Odegaard more effective on the right than any other position we've seen him?
I think he's effective no matter where he goes, because I actually think he's more two-footed than people give him credit for.
Yeah.
Some of the shots that he's had have actually been that he's made from distance that have hit the woodwork have been with his left foot, and I don't think he's actually technically left-footed. I think he's actually supposed to be right foot dominant, and his left foot's supposed to be his weaker foot. But I think what's nice about Odegaard is that he doesn't hold on to the ball maybe as long as sometimes Kudus does. Like, he does look to move it maybe a bit quicker. Kudus, for whatever reason, was a bit frustrating in that he would just sometimes try to do it all on his own. Odegaard, I think, seems to pick the right moments actually when to sort of just create something all on his own. He will look to take on that responsibility, but then at other times he will look to put it across quickly, or he will look to play off of someone. I think he's been a lot smarter in possession in the last couple of games as well. He's not giving the ball away or being shoved off it or being pushed off it way too easily like he kind of was in the beginning of the season, or maybe when he first came in under Ange. And at times when we've just been crying out for someone just to create something, he's been that guy to do it for us, because let's be honest, Thomas Frank's attacking football, or his build-up play, is pretty much non-existent, to be honest. It's just side to side, side to side, side to side. Odegaard has been that one guy that will take on the responsibility not to go sideways or backwards, not to just recycle possession. He likes to sort of take things on his own. So I think he's been amazing, Dave. But to be honest, I rate him highly enough that I think he could be doing the same job on the left side. It's just right now we need him on the right, because that's just where he would fit in, considering all the injuries that we have. He's been so good in the last few games when we've been, again, January, one of the worst months we've had form-wise. Like, we've been losing or dropping points in every single one of these games. But you would say that Odegaard has probably been the shining light in these really bad games. And sometimes, it's a really good sign if someone is playing well when the rest of the team and just the results in general have been terrible. If you're that one guy that's shining in that period, that's a very good sign, really. So I've been loving him this last.
What I like about Wilson Odegaard is his directness. Like with Kudus, when he gets the ball, it's always he's back to play, sort of looking to then muscle off 2 or 3 people and get turned. With Wilson Odegaard, a lot of the time he's actually receiving the ball side on, which then means, he can open up his body and go at his fullback. And if he doesn't, he's not afraid to lay it off and run in behind. He's never static out there, and that's what I like about him. And I think the fact that he's mixed up his game like that, where he can take the ball to feet, but he's also learned, maybe like what Brennan Johnson used to excel at, was running in behind. And I think Wilson Odegaard has added to that game. And I think that's where I used to be frustrated with Johnson. I wanted Johnson at times to be able to take the ball into feet and run at his fullback. He couldn't mix up his game. Led him to becoming very, very predictable, very, very easy to defend against. Wilson Odegaard isn't, because he has both sides to his game, where he can time his running behind and also take the ball to feet half, on the half turn and run at his guy. But I'd also argue, I do think his end product is starting to improve slightly. That's one of the big criticisms I've had of Wilson Odegaard. I've always said, I think he's an extremely talented player. He's very raw in his decision-making in the final third. And we've seen that at times where he's flashing these wild shots over the bar, missing from 6-7 yards out and stuff like that. He gets into good crossing positions, but never really found that final ball. Whereas I think what you're seeing in recent weeks, and one thing I've always said that I think will come with more games and a bit more age and wisdom, is, and I see it time and time again with young players, they get excited in the final third because they're so desperate to make an impact. Whereas the real best players, actually, the game slows down in that moment. They get their head up and they make the right decision, and they execute that pass or they execute that shot. And that's what I'm starting to see with Wilson Odegaard. Even his shooting now is starting to hit the target with more regularity. And we are seeing a guy that is improving right now. And for me, I really like where this is going. I mean, what he done against Frankfurt there midweek, picked up the ball in that tight space, took 1 or 2 players out the game, delivered a shot on his left foot, to your point, Jack, rattles the post. That's what we need more of for some of our front players. I think sometimes since Kane and Son have gone, a lot of our front players sometimes go hiding in the regard that they're just happy to move it on, recycle the ball. I mean, that's what I expect my fullback to do, my centre back to do, my defensive midfielder to do. Not my players in the forward there. We pay you to be that guy to take on that responsibility. And despite what people think of our front line, I think Wilson Odobert is certainly one of them players trying to carry that responsibility. Anyone else want to come in on that, Martin or
Yeah,
Stevie?
I just feel like to pick on both your points. Like I agree, he's both-footed, but I think on the left he was stopped starting in games. He was getting half hour, then he was starting, then he was coming off. But since Kudus has been out, he looks a bit more comfortable on the right or coming inside from the right. And he's getting that run of games to build his confidence to do these things. But I think, as you say, on the right, he's picking up the ball and he's prepared to then run, and he'll stand a player up and then he'll jink him and he'll have a go. Well, I think on the left, he's a bit more cautious. So I don't know whether them two things have just come in where he's been stop-start on the left, but now he's getting a run on the right, whether that's a factor. But to me, he just looks a bit more comfortable on the right, and he is getting in positions, and he is one of them give and go and run into space. Well, I think Kudus is more, well, I'm going to get the ball, and they're going to put 2 or 3 on me. I'm going to try and wriggle out of these, then do something. Well, I think Odobert is having less players on him. He's getting that bit of time, but he is prepared to take a man on and play a pass inside and run behind and put a cross in. So it's a combination of all them things, but I just think whether it is the runner games and he's more comfortable on the right, but it just, whatever the reason is, it seems to be better for him. So I'm liking it at the minute.
Just quickly, I can't believe this moron has dropped Wilson Odobert out of the front line today as well. Continues with my narrative. If you play well, you get dropped underneath this guy. Yeah. Absolutely insane. Stevie, anyway, you want to finish off our conversation on, or a pointless conversation around Wilson Odobert now because Frizzy Frank has dropped them?
No, you know what the interesting thing is, I think he's actually found some comfortability on the right hand side where I don't think necessarily the pressure of having to perform, and maybe it's just because for the longest part he actually had Pedro Porro to have that combination play down that right hand side. I think it may have been that Borussia Dortmund match where you actually saw the best of it, where even in space he was able to create and get that ball down the right hand side. I think it was that goal that Solanke scored. It was that pinpoint ball with his right foot that hit Solanke's back foot for that goal. And it just goes to show you that the improvement has it's weird because I don't necessarily think the improvement was necessarily all that visible on the left hand side, but as soon as that position switch happened, and then all of a sudden you saw that improvement curve absolutely just take a sharp turn. And so from that standpoint, you wonder whether or not it was having somebody playing behind him that he can actually play off that actually has benefited his play. And so from that standpoint, yeah, 100%, he's looked night and day better to the point where he's actually playing with a tremendous amount of confidence where we didn't necessarily see it on the left-hand side.
No, absolutely. But what I will say to Wilson is, I do think he is better on the right, but I do think, he has had good games on the left and shown that he can play out there if required. And I think, that's the sign of a good player for me, that he can play on either side, even though he's not playing on the side with his favorite foot, he can still work it out. Because it is a bit of a different game. You're constantly taking the ball on your inside foot rather than your outside foot, which automatically brings it closer to the defender getting closer to you. Naturally your instinct is to sort of jink inside, even though your role as a winger is to go on the outside a lot of the times and stuff like that. So there's a bit of a role when you move over to left and you're right-footed. But this guy has shown more than enough that he can handle that. But Jack, now's your time to shine. People will probably go mad at you, even though you didn't pick this lineup, but let's read it out.
Yeah, my fault, everybody. Just by the way, everybody, do smash the like button if you're in here, please. We would really appreciate it. And just goes a long way in sending this out to more and more people. Tons of people watching us on X. A lot of people watching us on YouTube as well. So we would appreciate you guys if you did so. Vicario, I mean, we're going to have to work this one out here together.
It's a back
Dave.
five, Jack.
It's a back five. Vicario in goals, Dragishin, Palhinha. You would assume Romero as the center backs in this one. And then Udogi and Gray could be the fullbacks potentially. And then Basuma, Gallagher are probably in midfield. Yeah. And then the front line would be Xavi Simons, Colomwani, and Solanke up top as well. You never know. Like, it could be Colomwani on the right and then Xavi on the left, or it could be Xavi, just behind them with both Solanke and Kolomwani up top together. But
Yeah,
Thomas Frank has had to. I don't know.
too.
I mean, the fact that he's left Tell and Odebear on the bench, this guy, he's just, I don't know, gives me a headache every single week sometimes. I'm starting to miss Ange Postecoglou just for the fact that he at least played the same team every single week. Even if they didn't have any legs left on them, he would still play them. This guy just rotates for no reason at all. It's just anybody that plays well, he finds a reason to drop them.
If we had more available players, I guarantee you'd drop Mwani and Solanke for scoring midweek at this point. But look, I do think, to be honest with you, Jack, I think it's going to be the exact same formation we've seen the last 3 weeks, the last 3 games. I think Mwani and Xavi would sort of play inside roles. Well, maybe Gray and Mwani might actually switch. Gray might be more inverted and put Mwani more out wide. But I think the other one will remain the same, where Xavi will play inside and Udogie will be tasked of being that left wing back and getting on the outside. But I reckon the right-hand side, they might switch that up a little. It'd be interesting to see what happens there. But it is worth noting, new signing, Souza, whatever way you want to pronounce it, he's on the bench. So, I wouldn't say expect the debut today, but you never know. And it'd be interesting to see, if things do get bad, throw the kid in and see what he can offer. But look, Jack, we'll hold back your thoughts on Wilson Odebear and Tell not starting, and we'll hold them back for the watch along to give people, something to tune into. That's maybe a different conversation and stuff like that. Martin, let's get your thoughts on the lineup here, and let's get your score prediction.
Well, I'm seeing it a few different ways. I think if he does the back 3, will he play 4-1-2, or will he do the 5? I think it's going to be the 5. I'd like to think it'd be a bit, but if you played, he's going to play Basuma and Gallagher in the middle. If he plays Gray on the right and Xavi on the left, or will he put Morani on the left? I can't work that one out. It's just going to be one of them. I can do it so many different ways. I just can't see the sense in it. And
honestly,
as
I
you say,
just go off what he's done the last 3 games. It's been the same thing. That's what I'm looking at here.
And then you would stick to your players like Odebear and that. We've got no Champions League. Let him have a game. He's been doing well. So again, he's done whatever he's done and knocked the confidence like he did out of Sarr and Xavi and all these people. It's just hard to make sense. So you've got to say Gallagher is going to be Paulinho, but is Paulinho going in the back 3 again? Do you know what I mean? But are you wasting your Paulinho by doing that? It's just, is he going to stick Dragusin on the right, Romero in the middle, and make Udogie play the left back?
Dragusin can't play either side of that back 3. He has to.
But that's what I'm saying. There's so many variations you can do.
Yeah.
But he's got 2 strikers on the pitch, so he better try and use them. Whatever he plays behind, he's got to try and tell them, whatever you do, you got to get the ball to him. So if you're going to put 2 strikers on the pitch and not give him any service, then you're wasting 2 strikers. Yeah. So on the basis of that, I can't work it out. I'm going to stick to 2-0 Spurs. Madness.
We'll take it. Look, you never know. Dragusin and Romero or Paulinho, you might step up with the goals we need today. It seems to be a centre-backs game right now. At Tottenham Hotspur. 2-0 though, Martin. I'd snap your hand off for it now, man. At least I can enjoy the rest of the bank.
I'm staying optimistic today.
I don't mind it. I don't mind it, lad. Stevie, let's get your thoughts here on the lineup and let's get your score prediction. By the way, guys, we do have Stevie's link here in the chat as well. Make sure you get over there and smash that subscribe button.
I'm a little confused by it because one of the things that I was kind of expecting is a little bit more pace in the forward line because you were wondering whether or not we were going to at least adopt some sort of the playing style that we beat them earlier in the season. Whether or not for maybe the first half hour, maybe they were going to press a little bit to try to at least get some turnovers a little bit higher up the pitch. And from this configuration, it looks like it is an ultra defensive lineup here. To me, it reads as a 5-3-2. And from that standpoint, it almost feels like it's one-dimensional in a counterattacking style. And so I'm kind of wondering, is this more of a mid-block where we're going to try to take away the central passing lanes and try to keep them, try to keep their attack wide? if that's the case, I can understand it. But that being said, it essentially reads that we're essentially going to concede possession from the off, and I don't necessarily think that's necessarily the game plan, or it should have been the game plan going into this one. I don't necessarily understand the thought process behind this, because again, I was kind of hoping there was going to be a little bit more pace in this starting lineup, but I don't know what to make of it. So that being said,
Footmob are doing 3-4-3.
3-4-3. Yeah. So from that standpoint, I'm gonna 2-1 City.
Ooh, predicting a loss. Fair enough. Look, realism. I can respect that. I can respect that, my man. But guys, if you do like what Stevie has to say, like I said, please get over, smash the subscribe button on his channel. That'd be absolutely brilliant, guys. And then look, I'm just going to read out what we're up against today in terms of Man City's lineup here. We've got Donnarumma in goals, Mateus Nunes at right back, Kusanov and Gueye as your two centre backs, and Ryan Aït-Nouri at left back. Then you've got Rodri as your sort of holding midfielder, and then the four in front of that would be Bernardo Silva and Nico O'Reilly, and then Semenyo and Shirky either side on the wings, with Erling Haaland up front. That's what we're up against today. Let us know your thoughts. Do you think we'll get your score predictions in, I suppose, before we end off here, guys? But look, it's going to be a big ask today with what we've got available. To a degree, I understand some of the disappointment maybe around Wilson Odegaard being left out, or Matisse Tal being left out, especially after sort of clear the air talks and trying to convince Tal to stay and stuff like we seen yesterday. Reports last night coming out and saying that, the fact that he's on the bench. If you're Matisse Tal, you're going to be absolutely furious. Like, what more do I have to do, to sort of earn minutes here? But look, also, I think there's got to be an understanding. I know a lot of people don't like the lineup, but injuries and that sort of forced our hand across the back line, to be fair. So that sort of explains that one. No Jets bench today, so that's why Archie Gray will be feeling that right wing back. And we've got brother Moose in the house. Great show, boys. Help being in the gym, listening to something good. Let's hope tomorrow there is a show where we actually get one or two good bloody players, winger and striker preferably. Come on, you Spurs, win today. Yeah, tomorrow is deadline day. Myself and Jack will be on at some point tomorrow. It depends how early really the club come out and shut down the transfer window. I'd like to think we'll be in it to the very last minute trying to get some deals done. But too many times have we seen our window sort of statement come out early, we're done, stuff like that. So let's
it's so hard to get things done in a few hours, isn't it? It's just so risky. But
what I will say is, look, to be honest with you, I think reading into Thomas Frank's words yesterday, he sort of said, look, we're not going to panic buy if the right player isn't available. We're not just going to panic buy, because if we do, it sets us back in the summer.
So I think that last summer as well.
Yeah, but I think he's already sort of pouring cold water on it to sort of say, don't expect much this January, because, if you're looking at reports, we've been linked with this player, that player, and everything else. And I have no doubt Tottenham have probably inquired, but I think straight away the word back is from their camp, not interested. And I think that's why we're struggling largely this window. But guys, hopefully we can have a bit of light before the darkness tomorrow on deadline day and get against Man City today, because we badly need it. We're in a relegation scrap as it stands right now. West Ham have easier fixtures coming up now that Chelsea game is out the way. They've got the ability to score goals, so if we don't start picking up points rapidly, we're going to be pulled back into it. And likewise, this month is make or break in terms of Tottenham being able to claw back in the league and try and get a European spot out of it. And that journey starts today. We'll see you back here in half an hour. As always, come on, you Spurs.
Come on, you Spurs.
Come on, you Spurs.